It was the 5th year of Robert's marriage. When he was on the phone trying to calm his grumpy girlfriend down. When my boyfriend called unexpectedly. And I had to sit in the car with my husband while I tried to calm my angry boyfriend down. Naturally. The two people on the other end of the line could hear Robert and me. And they both hung up in a fit of anger. I looked at Robert expressionlessly. And struck first. Are you brain damaged? You were talking on the phone while we were driving in the car. And now my boyfriend is going to break up with me because he heard your voice. You're such a nuisance. Your boyfriend wants to break up with me. I leaned against the car window and couldn't stop the tears from falling. And Robert, who had just been hung up on, didn't look any better. He spoke angrily. Stop crying. When we get to my parents' house, they'll say I'm bullying you. I took out a tissue to wipe away the tears. Calmed down a bit. And spoke coldly. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have broken up with me. Robert frowned impatiently. Let's just have fun outside. If you're annoying me outside, I can also break up with her. I looked out the window coldly. I didn't want to argue with him. Today was his mother's birthday. The two elderly people had been good to me. I gathered my emotions. The family had a happy meal together. At the table, my mother-in-law took my hand and said earnestly, Jenny, you two should have a baby soon. We've been longing to have grandchildren for a long time. I smiled and nodded, playing the role of a good daughter-in-law appropriately. Robert also smiled and agreed. I'm usually too busy at work. I'll make time to spend some quality time with Jenny in the future. That was our tacit agreement. We are old friends. No matter how much we fight in private, we try not to hurt the surface harmony. Robert and I grew up together. We were in love for 3 years. We got married as soon as we graduated from college. Now it's been 5 years. In the first year of marriage, we were deeply in love. As close as glue. In the second year of marriage, Robert occasionally smelled like perfume. I smelled it on his secretary. We had a big fight. I asked him to change his secretary. In the third year of marriage, Robert started keeping canaries at home. I started by making a big scene. To going to hotels to catch him at the house he bought his mistress. To going to nightclubs and smashing a bottle over his head in front of him and his friends. To begging him to break up with the canary. Robert was so annoyed that he broke up with her. A few days later, they did break up. But he found another mistress. One after the other. I went to my parents and in-laws. And he calmed down a bit. But only for a while. He found a new young and pretty canary. By the 4th year, he said, Jenny, it's pointless for you to keep causing trouble like this. I'll give you 5% of the company's shares. And you should calm down a bit in the future. I've quite taken to that young girlfriend recently. Don't cause trouble with your parents again. Jenny. We grew up together. And have known each other for over 20 years. We know each other too well. There's no novelty at all. Why don't we just leave each other alone? If you go out and find someone else, I'll definitely have no problem with it. I'm tired too. I watch this farce numbly. And just find it ridiculous. I was curious as to why Robert liked to play around so much. So I started going to bars with my best friend and ordering male models. Every time I got drunk, the one on my left with the handsome face would feed me. And the one on my right with the 8-pack abs would let me feel his abs. I felt so happy. No wonder Robert likes variety and having fun. Who wouldn't? One time I got so drunk, I was vomiting at the sink. When a pair of slender hands handed me a hot towel, I said thank you. And looked up to see a boy with very attractive eyebrows and eyes. His face seemed to show me the Robert from my youth. He was still a freshman then. And after intercepting the 3rd love letter I had received from a suitor, he became anxious. He prepared a grand declaration of love. And amidst the jeering of his classmates, I shyly agreed to him. It was so nice to be young. When I came to my senses, I held on to the boy. And thanked him for the hot towel. Can I have your contact information? He probably bought the hot towel at the bar. I wanted to transfer money to him. As I thought about it, I must have been in too much pain. Because I threw up all over the guy. When I sobered up a bit, I was shocked. And hurriedly apologized. I'm really sorry. Let's add a contact method. How much are these clothes? You send me the amount. I'll pay you back. My consciousness was a bit fuzzy. I only remember the handsome guy sighed and added my contact information. Immediately afterwards, my best friend saw that I was taking a long time to come back and looked for me. Before I left, I bowed to the handsome guy and apologized repeatedly. The next day, when I sobered up, my best friend laughed at me while retelling the story. To apologize, I asked the handsome guy out to dinner. At the table, I handed him a new set of casual clothes. I said, "I'm really sorry. I bought them at the mall on my way here. I looked at your circle of friends and felt that you are about the same build as my brother. So I bought them in his size. By the way, how much were these clothes last night? I'll pay you back the same amount." The handsome guy looked at me strangely for a long time. I felt my scalp tingling. Before he spoke, "Sister, don't you remember me? I'm Charles." I froze for a moment. My brother's friend. I took a good look at the vaguely familiar face in front of me. I'm 5 years older than my brother. Our social circles are different. When he was a teenager, he often brought people back to play games. Sometimes we would say hello to each other when we met. And I've been married to Robert for 5 years. I usually don't go home much. When I saw Charles, I just thought he looked familiar. I didn't realize he was an acquaintance. I felt a little embarrassed. I had to ask for his contact information. And I had to go through my brother's best friend. "Sister, you liked me last night?" Charles asked playfully. I kept shaking my head. "I'm married." Charles poured me a cup of tea slowly. "But I heard from Robert that you two are not getting along well. Why does my brother tell everyone everything?" I covered my face. The feeling of catching a suitor and catching an acquaintance is like being caught. "Sister, why don't you consider getting a divorce? I'm also very good." I looked at Charles sitting across from me. Although as a face control, this face really makes my heart flutter. But I can only refuse heartlessly. I can't get a divorce. Our two families are allied. We work closely together. And it would be troublesome to divide our assets if we got divorced. Charles pursed his lips and lowered his head in silence. I could tell he looked a little aggrieved. So I quickly tried to make amends. And said that it wasn't that we couldn't get divorced. It was just that it would be troublesome. And that I didn't have any plans to do so at the moment. Charles looked up with sparkling eyes. "I'll just wait for my sister then." I wasn't planning to hook up with an acquaintance. But Charles took the initiative and pursued me more diligently than Robert. I thought it would soon fade. I didn't expect him to be so persistent. I had to look at this face to agree to him. That's it. Charles became my boyfriend. We went on dates. We went shopping. We went to the movies. We traveled. In his spare time, he cooked a big meal. After dinner, I snuggled in his arms and played video games. We were just like normal little lovers. His phone password was my birthday. Here. If you want to read it, you can read it. I only like you. Every month, when I had to go home with Robert for a party, he would send me a message and pout. "When are you coming back? And still love me when I come back. You won't go back on your word and break up with me, will you?" I replied, "I'll come find you after dinner. And still love you when I come back. So how could I go back on my word? I love you the most." "What? Robert. What's that?" After all, an old bull eats the tender grass. I didn't tell Robert that I'd hooked up with his best friend. A few days ago, Robert called and asked me to come home for dinner. Charles was cooking. And suddenly called out to me, "Sis, aren't you eating?" I panicked and answered. On the other end of the line, Robert was puzzled. Why does this voice sound so familiar to me? It sounds a bit like the voice of one of my brothers. I casually replied, "You're hearing things. You've been staying up too late and your ears are playing tricks on you." Charles waited until I hung up the phone. And then came over. With a slightly plaintive tone. "Why didn't you announce me?" I appeased him with a perfunctory. "Wouldn't it be nice just the two of us? Baby, I'm a married woman. And I'm messing around with you. The young master of the Charles family. It's not good for your reputation. However, This time Charles obviously didn't want to be fooled. I heard that Robert's mistress even came to bother you. Is that it? You still haven't thought about getting a divorce. I explained that. It wasn't that serious. The girl is young and doesn't know any better. Let her make trouble. Who hasn't been young? Have you thought about getting a divorce? Jenny. Charles looked at me seriously. I want to be honest with you. And not hide anything like this. I really didn't want to lie to him. So I just kept quiet. There were just too many things involved in a divorce. Not to mention the fact that the two families are working together on a multi-billion-dollar project. It's one thing if the parents don't approve of the marriage. It's another if there's a property dispute between me and him. Robert has given me 5% of the shares. Every year I get a dividend of $100 million. The cost of a divorce is too high. His air pressure is getting lower and lower. I hesitantly took his hand. He avoided it. For a long time. Charles smiled bitterly. It turns out that I was imagining things. You're just using me for fun. We had a Cold War for a few days. Charles called me. Unfortunately. That time period happened to be when Robert's little lover called him and was causing trouble. I hadn't said a word. But Charles on the other end heard Robert's voice. Baby. Don't be angry. I'll take you out to eat something delicious later. Charles immediately exploded. Great. Didn't your sister say that you two weren't getting along? And you're calling her baby? You guys go be babies on your own. Let's break up. I hurriedly coaxed. That's not true. Baby. I love you the most. Listen to me. I heard the phone hang up. I looked at Robert speechlessly. Robert over there also looked at the phone hanging up. And looked at me. I took the initiative. Are you brain damaged? What were you doing making phone calls in the car? You made my boyfriend want to break up with me when he heard your voice. You're a disaster. Back at the villa. Robert didn't go to comfort his lover. But opened the door with me. And sat on the sofa. I said coldly. The show is over. Why haven't you left yet? Are you a little interested in the one outside? What's he like? Compared to me. Robert came over. And asked with interest. I laughed at this. I don't know how Robert could ask such a thing. It happened to be a difficult time after a breakup. And I had nowhere to vent my anger. You're much better looking than me. 188. 8-pack abs. You're still young. You have a good temper. You come from a good family. The most important thing is, I'm 7 years younger than you. You're not young anymore. Robert. Don't compare me to my boyfriend. Every time I said something, Robert's face turned black. Last year. On my birthday. After I had a big scene at the hotel. He sighed. You're not young anymore. Jenny. I like the young ones. Those were the words that sent me into a deep freeze. I was filled with self-doubt for a long time. But after I got together with Charles, he never stopped showering me with praise. Every day. He would rain praise on me. He would praise me for the smallest things. And I would feel so happy. I realized that. It wasn't me who was at fault. It was the husband I chose. Robert was a bad person. In the end, I successfully drove Robert away. He slammed the door behind him. And I continued to worry about breaking up. I called several times. But Charles didn't answer. I knew he was really angry. But there was nothing I could do. The Charles family is one of the top families in the capital. I have heard of their family values. If Charles marries someone who has been married before, his family will definitely not approve. I am willing to give up this illusory future. And divorce Robert. To be honest, I have jumped from one relationship to another. My good friend Mary called. And asked me why I was not coming. Today is her birthday. And she is celebrating at a club. She asked me to come early. I agreed. Saying that I had a family dinner that day. And I'll go over there after. I went home. And changed clothes. I'll be right over. It wasn't far. I changed clothes and asked the driver to take me there. When I entered the private room, I found Charles in the corner. He was drinking alone in the corner. His normally calm face was now cold. There were quite a few empty bottles on the table. He had obviously drunk a lot. The world is just that small. Charles used to be abroad. Now that he's back, I naturally run into him a lot. I first greeted my friends. I told them to go ahead and enjoy themselves without me. And sat next to Charles. And took his wine glass. Okay. Take a break. Don't drink so much. Charles. Change your glass. I continued to take it away. After taking it away a few times, there were no wine glasses in front of him. Finally, he looked up at me and said, "What are you doing here? Aren't you with your husband? Here to tease me again?" I said honestly, "Friends are born to have fun." Charles's beautiful lips were pursed tightly, looking a little aggrieved. "Didn't my sister ever think of looking for me? I get angry when you bring this up. Did you answer my calls?" I was heartbroken. "You didn't answer my calls. Didn't listen to my explanations. And drank alone. Then you said I didn't look for you." I was so angry I didn't want to talk. I got up and wanted to leave. But Charles pulled me back. His tone was full of helplessness. "Where is it? My phone is always with me. If you don't believe me, where is my phone?" Charles looked left and right. His face rarely showed confusion. In the end, I helped him look. And finally found his phone in the sofa crevice, showing that I had made a dozen missed calls. I laughed angrily. "I called you a dozen times. And you were just drinking here." Charles was guilty and flustered. And hugged me. "Baby. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have accidentally left my phone on the sofa. I shouldn't have missed your calls. It's all the fault of this sofa. I'll have it replaced tomorrow." I pinched his face and rubbed it. And snorted. "Are we still breaking up?" "No, we're not." He had tears in his eyes from the pinching. And his eyes were red. He gave me a cheeky kiss. And said, "Sis. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm very easy to please. I'm fine when my sister pleases me. That's why you should find a handsome boyfriend." Seeing this face made me lose my temper. After a day, Robert called me for the first time. I answered. His voice came over the phone. A little helpless. "Lisa wouldn't listen to my explanation. She insisted that you tell her personally. Can you tell her that we really didn't do anything yesterday? The little girl is jealous at a young age. Please bear with me." Even though I was already disappointed with Robert. At that moment, a suffocating feeling came over me. It felt as if a huge stone was weighing on my chest. It made breathing extremely difficult. This is the husband I have known since I was little. And willingly chose. A scumbag who wants his wife to help. Explain to the mistress that nothing happened between him and his wife. When he loves someone, he is willing to spoil and love them. But when he doesn't love someone, he is cold and heartless. But why? Is this person me? What have I done wrong? I didn't say anything for too long. And he said again. "I know this matter is a bit excessive. But the little girl doesn't feel secure. Can you help explain it?" I took a deep breath. And laughed out loud. "Okay. You give her the phone." It seemed like a sigh of relief over there. He called the girl over to answer the phone. This Lisa is only 18 years old. Her whole mind is focused on whether Robert loves her or not. In her eyes, she and Robert are true love. But how could true love let her be a mistress? So she came straight to me the other day. Just to yell at me to step down. And say that Robert no longer loved me. And that it was not good for either of us to keep dragging this out. And came to my villa early in the morning. I was so sleepy that I couldn't even open my eyes. I didn't hear the whole declaration of true love. And told the butler to call the bodyguard to take her away. When she was being dragged away, Lisa was still yelling. "It's the unloved one who is the mistress. You old woman. My brother will definitely divorce you." I frowned and looked at the butler. "What's wrong with you? Why are you letting just anyone in?" The dog barked. The butler hurriedly explained. At first, this young lady was very polite. She said she was the CEO's secretary. The CEO asked her to come back and get something. I saw that she was in a hurry. She got off the CEO's car again. So I let her in. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I won't do it again." I waved my hand. I went back to sleep. After I woke up, I went shopping with my girlfriends. I used Robert's card and spent tens of millions. I came back with a lot of stuff. People should always treat themselves well. When I answered the phone, the girl's voice was young and pleasant, but with a hint of blatant malice. Sorry, sis. I was the one who kept pestering him. What exactly happened between you yesterday? This person has really been spoiled. Let me tell you. Yesterday, we went to my mother-in-law's house first. Then she told us to have a baby soon. We happily agreed. And promised to give her a big baby boy this year. And then, we kissed at my mother-in-law's house until we got home. And we even did it again. Is there a problem? The girl's smile froze. How could it be? He clearly. You don't believe me. I have a recording. Let me play it for you. I took out the recording. There was a playback of the surveillance video. I played it directly for the girl. In the recording, my mother-in-law asked us to have a baby soon. Robert's hearty laughter could be heard. Mom, I'll give you a big baby next year. What's there outside? Nothing. Jenny and I are doing fine. My mother-in-law said. I'm relieved then. Jenny is such a good person. Don't work so hard that you forget your wife. Behind us was the sound of us saying yes. Then I played a recording of Robert's lover calling me. One of them came to see me. Showing off. He called me. I recorded it. The constant screaming made people blush. The girl hung up directly. Huh. Fighting with me. Robert will probably argue again. I put down the phone. Lying on the sofa. My mood became extremely bad. Do I have to put up with this for the next few decades? I'm still so young. What right does Robert have? Why is he treating me like this? On the weekend, I went back to my parents' house. At the dinner table, I asked when the business deal between our family and Robert's family would come to an end. My father thought for a moment and said, about half a year. I think. What's wrong? I lowered my eyes and said, I want a divorce. There was silence at the table. And after a while, I heard my father sigh. As for your generation's business, do whatever you like. I was a little surprised that there was no objection, as I had expected. Okay. My parents actually missed you very much. Come back and visit us often. Okay. We were both speechless. My parents had to work hard in their early years and left me with my grandparents in the countryside until I was in high school. When they finally took me back, they kept saying they were too busy with their work. But after my brother was born, they brought him up themselves and educated him with great care. It's impossible to say I don't resent them. I've always treated my parents with indifference. I've always dealt with things on my own, trying not to trouble them. My brother was brought up with them from a young age. And I don't know how much closer we are than they are. This is also one of the reasons why I've never divorced. I just don't feel like I'm enough. I'm afraid that because of the long-term cooperation between our families, they won't agree to a divorce. On the way back to the villa, Robert sent me a message. In fact, my parents have always felt guilty towards you. When I heard that my brother-in-law had someone else, Dad was so angry that he called and cursed at him. Later, when I saw you so sad and upset, we didn't know what to say. You have a boyfriend now. I'm divorced. Let me introduce you to him. Robert. The dead pig dropped its jaw emoji. The dull atmosphere was swept away. I couldn't help but laugh. After living for more than 20 years, I haven't felt my parents' affection many times. This time I am most grateful. I started to work on the divorce. I asked a private detective to collect evidence of Robert's infidelity. And when Lisa, Robert's mistress, called again to brag, I sneered at her. So what if you're in love? You don't even have a child. A mistress is a mistress. You'll never be on an equal footing. As long as I'm unhappy, I'll make you pay back every cent he spent on you. Lisa was completely undefended. She hung up and never called again. Robert always knew how to handle things with children. He played around, but he took proper precautions. I hadn't heard any news of a pregnancy from any of his mistresses over the years. 3 months later, she did bring me good news. A photo of a pregnancy test with 2 parallel bars, accompanied by the words, "You said this time he'd choose you or the baby." I asked her to meet me in a private room, and brought Robert's mother along. To give her a surprise. I said. Mother-in-law. Congratulations. You're going to have a grandchild. Mother-in-law had always hoped for a grandchild. Robert had always played around, but never wanted to follow in his father's footsteps. His father had been a womanizer when he was young, and had fathered several illegitimate children. When Robert was a child, he was framed and sold. It was all the work of his father's mistresses. Number 1, 2, 3 and 5. A few years ago, when we were young, we thought about waiting until we were more mature before having children. Now that we've got into this mess, we definitely won't have any. My mother-in-law asked me in surprise. How long has Jenny been pregnant? This is me. I shook my head and pointed at Lisa. It's not me. She's pregnant. Lisa immediately went up to her and said warmly, Auntie, I'm Lisa's girlfriend. My mother-in-law took out her hand and asked me, Jenny, what does this mean? I'm innocent. How would I know? You have to ask Robert about this. I thought that at least Robert was part of the family. I brought it to you to show you. Grandma went out with a dark face and called Robert to come over immediately. In a short while, Robert rushed over. Grandma slapped him. You ungrateful son. Look what you've done. Robert was confused by the slap. When he looked up, he saw me. And he also saw Lisa. What's going on? I threw the pregnancy test stick in his face. Take a good look at this. It's fine to fool around outside, but you got someone pregnant. How can you face me? Robert's eyes widened, and he said resolutely, No way. I always wear a condom. Lisa went over to him slowly. Brother. One time you got drunk. And I didn't take the pill afterwards. It wasn't intentional. I just forgot. I interrupted their snuggling. Get a divorce. You're at fault. Split the assets 30-70. 30 for you. 70 for me. I signaled to Lisa with my chin. As for her, every cent you spend on her is my joint marital property. I demand that she return it all to me. As soon as I finished speaking, I heard two voices at the same time. Robert. Impossible. Mother-in-law. You can't get rid of the baby. Mother-in-law sighed and took my hand. Jenny. I'm getting old too. You know. I've been longing for a grandchild for a long time. I smiled. It's fine. Someone has given birth to your son now. After I divorce your son, you can have as many as you want. Mother-in-law choked for a moment. It doesn't mean that I want you to get divorced. We're not getting divorced. Robert stepped forward and took me by the hand. Panicking. Jenny. I was wrong. We don't need to go to this extent. I said coldly. What are you pretending? Your third son is still standing in front of you. You are the one who has come this far. Aren't you? You are the one who has been reported by the media for changing girlfriends one after another. Aren't you? I tried to break free. But I really couldn't. So I slapped him directly with my left hand. The force was so strong that Robert's handsome face quickly turned red with a slap mark. Lisa exclaimed in alarm. She was distressed and came forward to hold him. But he gave her a shove. Jenny. I'll take care of everything. I'll give her some money to get an abortion. And don't ask her for your money back. Think of it as compensation for Lisa. Robert whispered. Pleading. I'd just like a little variety. It's not that I don't love you. And you can forget about that other woman. Let's start over. Okay. We grew up together. We've been together for 8 years. You'll be my wife. Don't do this. Don't hit her. Grandma said anxiously. You've been married for 5 years and you can't have a child. Finally. Someone is pregnant. What's the point of hitting her? Robert looked at his mother-in-law in disbelief. Mom. Can you stop causing trouble? His mother-in-law muttered. I'm not asking you two to get divorced. I'll take care of the baby when it's born. I won't disturb your lives. Seeing that the two of them were about to argue, I said. Our 2 family projects are also coming to an end. I hope we can part on good terms. My lawyer will contact you with the divorce agreement. It's better for both of our families to end it early. After saying that, I got up and left. I packed some of my clothes and moved to a small apartment. I didn't want to see Robert until the divorce was final. Robert kept refusing to sign the divorce papers. He kept sending me messages and calling me, begging me. He also asked a lot of our mutual friends to persuade me. I was fed up. I blocked all of them. I don't know where he got my address. He knocked on my door. I thought it was a delivery. I opened the door directly. It was Robert. He looked like he had fallen apart. His eyes were bloodshot. His clothes were all crumpled. As soon as he saw me, his eyes lit up instantly. He took a long stride and hugged me. Jenny, I was wrong. I'll change. We won't get a divorce. I promise you. We'll live together. I'll never find anyone else. I can't get away. Sigh. Let go of me. Let's talk. Robert looked at me hesitantly. No divorce. It's annoying. It's always the same thing. I kind of miss Charles. If he made me angry, he'd just try to appease me in different ways. Good things kept popping out of his pretty lips. I want to kiss Charles. Ever since I decided to divorce, I've cut off contact with Charles. I told him, I'm getting ready to divorce. Let's break up for a while. It can't affect the division of my assets. He nodded obediently. His eyes were shining. I'm waiting for my sister to get divorced. I'll give you all your husband's assets. I'll give you my assets too. We'll be better off together than apart. So we didn't contact each other for 3 months. Robert has a big family and a big business. Plus, he has the fault of cheating on his pregnant wife. He feels a little guilty. My expectation is 30 to 70 split. I'm already so rich. Why can't I find someone I like? I really hate being with Robert for even a second longer. Robert is still there. Mumbling. It's my fault. You're still my favorite. It's all those women outside who seduced me. I'll only stay with you from now on. We'll have 2 kids. One will have the surname Zhou. The other will have the surname Ning. I'll go with you wherever you want to go. From now on. I'll come home as soon as I finish work. We'll be fine. Can you shut up? I couldn't hold back and interrupted him. The baby died. And you're breastfeeding it. You were forced to sleep with them. Lisa could get pregnant on her own. You're such a big man. And you're shamelessly blaming the little girl. I don't like you. Just touching you makes me feel dirty. Understand? I'm tearing off my mask. I'm finally feeling better. Robert looked at me blankly. His face was bitter. Jenny. I took a step back. I feel very tired. I know you don't want a divorce. I have already applied for property preservation. You should receive the information tomorrow. I only asked for 70% of the property. That is already very fair. If you refuse, when Robert's family runs out of money, someone will naturally want you to agree. After saying that, I didn't care about Robert's face and pushed him out the door. Did my parents know about my divorce? They didn't say anything. They just kept pressuring Robert's family. Robert's parents knew about my property preservation and came to question me angrily. I didn't care. I said, it's all your son's fault. He doesn't agree to divorce. And he doesn't treat me well. How can things be so good in the world? What do I care about the company's operations? I'm getting a divorce anyway. It's not my company. Come scold me. Why don't you go find your son and get a divorce early? I'll revoke it early. Robert couldn't take the pressure from his family and company anymore. He agreed to divorce me. The division of property went smoothly. On the day we got the certificate, Robert suddenly said, after we get the certificate, let's go have some dinner. I agreed. He found a nearby restaurant. I ate on my own. But he suddenly said, if Ningen wasn't pregnant, would we still get divorced? I laughed out loud. And he looked at me in confusion. When I had finished laughing, I said, no, Evan, if she wasn't pregnant, I would still have divorced you. You let Lisa provoke me. And even asked me to explain to her that there was nothing between you and me before. We are obviously husband and wife. I don't depend on you for a living. Robert stuttered. I did that because the day before, mentioned that guy outside. I was a little angry. So I deliberately provoked you. Robert. I'm not a bird you keep outside. I used to love you. And be willing to suffer. Now I don't love you anymore. You're nothing. I took a sip of tea. And continued. And, luckily, I didn't hang myself on your trash. Otherwise I wouldn't have met someone I like so much. Robert frowned. You divorced me for him. Mentioning Charles. I had a smile in my eyes. Yes. I really like him. He refused to be a third wheel. So I had no choice but to divorce you. I had no choice. You've had so many girlfriends. I used to tease you all the time. But you never listened. I'm sure you can understand how I feel. I helplessly threw up my hands. And looked like a love-struck fool. Which successfully drove Robert away. It was hilarious. Pissed off at my ex-husband. What could be more infuriating than using another man to get back at him? Charles was only a small part of the reason. The main reason was myself. The thought of spending the rest of my life with Robert made me feel sick. I'm not even 30 yet. Why should I compromise myself? Leaving the restaurant, Charles was already waiting at the door. Along with his friends. Who greeted me with a smile. Sister-in-law. Let's go play some go-karting. And later we'll go to Charles's new bar. I laughed and got into Charles's car. Everyone was laughing and joking. When I was with Robert, he wanted me to be the ideal wife. Quiet. Understanding. And helpful to my in-laws. But when I was with Charles, he bungee jumped with me. Climbed mountains. And went to see the Aurora Borealis. Even if he was busy, he would still find time to plan. And go with me to places I wanted to go. He just wanted me to be myself. At the bar one night, there was a small incident. I had drunk a little too much. On the way back from the bathroom, a guy said hello to me. I recognized him as the son of my parents' friends. We had been working together for a while. We had met a few times. And had a few conversations. I learned that he was very interested in a product developed by my family. He wanted to add me. And said he would invite me to the next new product launch. I saw that my parents knew each other. So I couldn't refuse. So we exchanged contact information. Just as Charles happened to pass by. Charles. This guy. Took a step towards me. And said to me in a declaration of sovereignty. Baby. I said, why did I wait for you for so long outside? Let's go. I nodded. And said goodbye to the guy. As soon as I returned to my booth, Song Wenjing drank without saying a word. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Everyone around was a little embarrassed. I told him nicely that I knew this person. We are friends from the business world. We also cooperate at home. He pursed his lips. And said in a sulky voice. I know. Still ignoring me. He drank glass after glass. I didn't indulge him. I got up and left. He hurriedly pulled me back. I quickly pulled my hand back. And walked out. Song Wenjing followed me out. It was his turn to explain in a nice voice. Sister. We also met in a bar. Then sister gave someone your contact information. And I got a little jealous. I didn't restrict sister from making friends. Don't be angry. I opened my father's circle of friends. And scrolled down to find my parents and me. And a photo of the boy and his parents. In front of him. Are they business friends? Charles's sad eyebrows unfurled. Hugging me and being cute. I thought my sister was attracted to the color. And didn't want me anymore. I'm sorry. Sister. Kiss 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 kiss. I raised my eyebrows. Does your family-owned bar have male models? Yes. No. Name me a male model and I'll forgive you. I want the top one. No way. Aren't I your male model? Charles buried his head in my neck and rubbed it. In an attempt to be cute. I coldly and ruthlessly refused. Charles's bargaining. One I ate. Charles. Pieces at most. I ate least 6. Charles. At most 3. Otherwise. I won't scream. I can't get any more. Deal. I was contentedly holding his hand as we went back to order the male models. I'm a fan of good looks. But I know when to stop. I ordered the male model for the girlfriend who was with me. And watched the male model dance on the side. After returning home, Song Wenjing lifted up his hem and let me touch his abs. And said seductively, look at your sister staring at their abs. Are mine any less attractive to touch? I sucked in my saliva. The dizzy effects of the wine made me bold. What's the harm in touching them? You only know if you try. He chuckled lightly, picked me up and carried me into the bedroom. I woke up the next day with a hangover and a back that felt like it was going to snap. I didn't get up until the evening. Sigh. Young people are so good. They have endless energy. Lisa gave birth to a boy. With a mother like her. Robert is going to throw her a big wedding. I went with my bodyguard to congratulate her. I gave her a gift. It's been quiet these days. I've been waiting for this day. The two of them were welcoming the guests. I handed Robert the envelope. And for me. I don't have anything to give you. So I'll give you the uncomfortable truth. Robert opened it confusedly. And then his face turned pale. He slammed the photo at Lisa. What's going on? As soon as Lisa saw the photo, her face turned pale. Jenny is setting me up. I didn't do any of this. I'm just innocently standing here. There's also a USB drive in there. Just take a look and you'll know if it's true. I bribed Lisa's best friend to mention the idea of surrogacy, on purpose or by accident. When Lisa wanted to have a baby and said she could find a man, Lisa was desperate. But she also wanted to get rid of me. So she contacted someone and had sex a few times. And got pregnant. Before she came to my door. Unaware that I had arranged it. The time, place and room number, both of them entering and leaving the hotel, were all recorded. And it was all in the envelope. I had waited so long. Until Robert registered the boy. Until the Robert family announced the baby to the world. Until they got married. I came especially to see this scene. Robert plugged the USB drive into the computer. And an unheard of sound came from it. The two of them were entwined. He didn't even wait until the end and threw the computer on the floor. He grabbed Lisa by the neck. His eyes were red. Why? I treated you well. And you cheated on me. I pretended to be fine. Hey. Don't fight. We're in public. I just cheated on you a little. Don't worry. The baby isn't even yours. Lisa broke free. She yelled at me. Shut up. You're the one to blame. Why did you come to my wedding? She said. Rushing up to hit me. I took a step back. Two bodyguards held her down. She threw her hands up. There was nothing I could do. I hold a grudge. It's your own fault for being so stupid. Did you really think you could take this loser from me and feel smug? In fact, I don't want him. Now. I wish you two a happy life together. Bye. After saying that, it walked away majestically. Surrounded by bodyguards. The Robert family's parents arrived in time to stop Robert from beating Lisa. And announced that the wedding was off. Later, I heard that the Robert family had just announced the death of their newborn great-grandson. Lisa was also kicked out of the house. How could I suppress this? I asked someone to leak some inside information to the reporters. Once the news broke, Robert was called cuckold brother by netizens. However, as netizens deduced the timeline, they revealed that Lisa and Robert had committed adultery during their marriage. Because of the death of the great-grandson, many netizens suspected that it was Robert's family who killed the child. Robert tried to explain. And I blocked him with even bigger revelations. For example, Lisa was still an underage minor when she was with Robert. For example, photos of him cheating on his marriage with multiple girlfriends. I offered Lisa a huge sum of money to ensure her future. And asked her to come forward and testify that the child was killed by Robert's family. She hated me to death. And angrily said, "Dream on." I said, "I'm not just going to come after you. I'll also be looking for Robert's lovers." A year ago, when I was collecting evidence of Robert's infidelity, I realized that Robert is indeed a bit of a pervert. Those girls. Some of them didn't do it willingly. He either threatened or lured them. And made sure to get them. When he got tired of them. She hesitated for a long time. And reluctantly agreed. After all. After leaving Robert. She was penniless and had a hard time supporting herself. In order to bear this child. She had already applied for a leave of absence. And was blocked by Robert's family. No one would hire her for even a part-time job. At that time, the Robert family's reputation was damaged. And the stock price plummeted. Robert also faced the risk of going to prison. Many partners requested to cancel subscriptions. Orders were stuck. The capital chain was broken. Robert begged to come to me. XIN. Seeing as we have been friends for many years. Save the Robert family. I looked at him and sighed. Robert. You should never have imagined this day. None of your good brothers will lend you money. Not even a little help. Are you desperate? Can't control your lower body. Didn't you do all this? A few months ago. The man who was full of spirit. Is now in tears. And hates me to death. But can only beg me. I said. I won't help you. Anyone who betrays my heart. Will have to swallow 10,000 needles. I told the security guard to drag him out. Before he was dragged away. He cursed me. Didn't you cheat too? Who is more noble than who? You're old and ugly. What are you pretending? I sneered. I won't be looking for underage people to force into sex. You'll do well in prison. In the end, the Robert family filed for bankruptcy. Robert was sent to prison by his many ex-girlfriends. When I heard the news, I was nestled in Charles's arms, watching a movie with him, eating grapes he had already peeled. I got up and smiled at him. Let's go. Let's go out and celebrate with a big meal. Charles patted my head. Okay.